Hey everyone, I'm Eric Blessing from OK Hustle, and here with John and Garrett of Cirque Coffee.
Hey.
Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, yeah.
Toast my goods.
Yeah, so we're just going to ask you guys a few questions. We're going to kind of have fun with this.
Cool, man.
Cool. So first off, how did you guys come up with the idea for Cirque?
You want to answer that one, Jono?
I mean, here I go. So, Garrett and I started brainstorming back in January, and we were sitting in my living room, and I was like, hey man, do you want to open a coffee shop with me? And he was like, yeah.
So next thing we know,
Cool.
we bought a Slayer, and then we got a building, and now we're here.
So how long have you guys been working on the project of this store?
Since March.
Yeah,
Since
we
March?
rented this space out in March.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's your background with coffee?
I really have just been getting into coffee since we started this. So, since John and I decided to open the shop, we got samples in from over 100 roasters, and got to, sample some of the best coffee around the world. And so we feel like, just from that experience alone that we've got, kind of ahead of the game in terms of tasting awesome coffee, developing our palates. John's experience in the coffee world is much more extensive though than mine is.
Yeah, so I got into home brewing first,
Okay.
just super, not home brewing beer, just brewing coffee at my house. But probably 4 years ago,
Okay.
got myself a really solid grinder and some pour over stuff.
Some
And
Folgers.
for sure. No, and I just geeked out real hard on it, and I found myself with 15 brew methods a year later, and I got a job at a really awesome coffee shop in Kansas City where I was living at the time called Parisi Artisan Coffee. I got to get trained up a bit by one of the world barista champions in Kansas City, and I also got to roast for about a year there as well. And so I worked for them for about 2.5 years, and then when my wife and I moved here to Tulsa, I was hired on immediately at Topeka as one of their baristas at the Hyatt. And so it was really only after we'd been here for about 8 months that Garrett and I started going for this shop.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Why did you guys choose the name Cirque? And then I guess a follow-up question with that would be, were there also possible other names?
Yeah. So a cirque is a hollowed out portion of a mountain where a glacier melted away. So John and I really like mountains a lot, and a lot of our history together and just in our lives has been kind of centered around outdoor adventures. So we've kind of lived in some cool places and experienced some cool stuff outside. So it's really special to us. So we thought that was cool. Really, the way Cirque came up, and where we even heard of the name, because we didn't know really what it meant before we saw it. It was the first coffee shop back in the 30s in Tulsa. So we kind of were like, man, let's find out what the first coffee shop was and see if it's a cool name.
That's cool.
And we really liked it. Yes, there were some other conversations about different names. I'm trying to even think what they were. Oh, my personal favorite was Shiver Me Timbers.
Oh, crap.
I was going to say, the first name I could think of was The Big Bean.
Oh, man.
I think another name that Garrett's wife was really serious about was
crap.
Spros for Bros.
Yeah.
Oh,
Man.
crap.
That one got shot down.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other really funny names.
Yeah. But yeah, man, kind of when we saw Cirque for the first time, it just sort of felt right, so we went with it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not a name like Harriet Brewman or something like that?
No. But man, it was a close second.
Well, what will make you guys different than the other coffee shops in Tulsa, like Foolish Things or Chimera?
You know, the coffee scene in Tulsa over the last, 3 or 4 or 5 years has really progressed a whole lot in a direction where people are starting to really care about the coffee they're drinking. Which for coffee shop and coffee shop owners has really raised the level of the coffee they're serving, So good coffee has been introduced to Tulsa. So there's kind of like a background for that where people know about craft coffee. They can, differentiate a good cup of coffee versus a bad cup of coffee, we have one of the best roasters in the nation in our city with Topeka, so people know good coffee here. So that being said, when we decided that we were going to open up a shop, we were pretty gung-ho about we're going to do it as good as we possibly can with what we know, or else we're not going to do it. So, in our opinion, what really will set us apart is the equipment that we've invested into and the roasters that we're bringing in. We've got, over 20 brew methods on bar. We have an espresso machine that, there's not another one in Oklahoma. It's the best espresso machine. It gives you more control over the coffee that you're pulling, more than any machine on the market. So, and then kind of variety of what we'll be able to do in terms of that will really kind of set us apart, we feel like, from other shops.
Well, let's talk about the espresso machine. The Slayer, right?
Yeah, the Slayer.
What's up with the Slayer? What makes that different? I've seen you guys post about it on your Instagram. Looks really cool. Looks really slick. Like a dude in a top hat. But...
whoa.
I'd say.
You heard it here first. And so, really, Slayers, every single one is customized and made to order, which is really unique about them and really cool. But I think something that sets them apart is that they don't build machines for a price point. Their benchmark is excellence, and then they price it accordingly, which is pretty cool. And granted, it makes for a more expensive machine, but it makes for the best machine. And then the control that you have over what you're able to do with that machine, it can make you or break you, because if you don't know what you're doing on that machine, you'll make something brutal because you have complete control over what you're doing. Where a lot of typical machines, you push a button, 9 bars of pressure builds up, and a shot of espresso is pulled. Where on a Slayer, you can really you can adjust the flow rate of the water down to whatever 0.1 bars of pressure in the brew chamber, and so you're just able to take any coffee really and pull a really incredible shot of espresso if you have the knowledge behind how the machine works and what's really going on. And so we feel like we have that knowledge and are able to utilize that, and so we're excited to offer that where it hasn't really been offered before.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I heard you guys mention 20 methods of brewing coffee.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Why such variety in brewing coffee,
Yeah.
and can you taste the difference between different forms?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One thing when you talk about brew methods when you're making brewed coffee, there's really three different main categories of methods. You've got full immersion methods, which would be like, you know, like an AeroPress or, you know, a French press, you know, kind of stuff like that. You've got a pour overs, like a Chemex, a V60, that sort of thing. And then you've got a hybrid that can like do both. So, you know, there's methods that people have come out where you can actually make a pour over in the same method that you could do a full immersion as well. And so then there's, you know, different methods that fall under all of those main categories. I would say that the differences between methods, the real question that John and I have asked is, man, can a coffee taste better on a different method, right?
Yeah.
So could this specific, you know, single origin coffee taste better on a Chemex than it does on an AeroPress? And because man, when we started doing this stuff, we got like 500 bags of coffee. So we had like lots of coffee to experiment with. And so as we started drinking different things on different methods, we realized like, man, some coffees just taste better on specific methods. And so our logic was like, man, let's just buy as many as we can get our hands on so we can quality control everything we're bringing in, brew it up on all the methods we have, each individual bean, and start to pair those beans with specific methods that we feel like highlight the coffee the best. But I mean, to answer your question more technically, like you've got, so like your pour over methods, right? Like companies will say, hey, you know, like a V60's brew chamber is 60 degrees, right? Yeah. And so the coffee's dripping at a 60 degree angle off the walls into the center. It's dripping out. So companies were like, hey man, maybe we can do a 70 degree angle and it'll taste better, you know? And so they start building these methods around ideas of like, man, maybe that'll make the coffee taste better. And you know, in our opinion, sometimes it does, sometimes it works, you know? So our goal really in having all the methods we have is just that we can serve each coffee to its full potential. Because each coffee has like a peak, you know, it can only taste so good. Yeah. I mean, it can taste worse for sure, but it has like the optimal point of what that bean is supposed to taste like. And we feel like with our equipment, you know, we can really push that to make it as good as we can.
All right. Yeah. Well, man, I was gonna ask like what vision you guys have for Cirque, but I think you kind of answered that, Garrett, with saying like, can we make coffee taste its full potential? Yeah. And you definitely have that variety of different personalities get different taste, I guess.
For sure.
So what can the average person, like who doesn't really know much about coffee, like to them, a cup of Folgers, a cup of Starbucks, and a cup of Topeka all taste the same.
Right.
Why should they come here?
Yeah. And so, while Garrett and I do geek out real hard about coffee, at the same time, like, we want this to just be a fun, awesome place to be. And so there isn't going to be judgment or like silly expectations. And so if people want to come in here and get a latte, a regular cup of joe, like that's super okay. And we'll just like meet you right there where you're at. Like we're gonna batch brew French press coffee that'll be approachable to anyone. Or if someone wants to branch out, we'll help them. You know, like we're just shooting to be very helpful, fun, you know, friendly atmosphere for people to come and try new things or just get the same thing that they've been getting, but still made excellently.
Yeah.
And so while we are shooting to do things in like a really crazy way, we still want to do things in a very approachable way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another one of our pretty big goals for the shop, we want to make the best coffee we can, you know, and no doubt that's like one of the biggest goals. But another one would be that we want to really focus on the coffee community in Tulsa really developing.
Yeah.
And so that happens between shops, you know. So like you'll find John and I at coffee shops all around Tulsa, you know.
Yeah.
Because we're not like the end all be all. We just love coffee and want to serve it to people, you know. So it happens like that, and then it happens with, you know, the general public gaining knowledge about a product. So one thing that we're going to be doing at this shop is having like public coffee tastings once a month, and then we'll do like home brewing lessons and things like that.
And latte art thread.
Yeah, stuff like that. That we really do want to educate people about why coffee is awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So, you said that when you guys first started out, this idea that you had 500 bags of coffee, and that's a ridiculous amount of coffee. Like 500 bags in total, like number-wise, or like 500 different brands?
No, like bags.
Bags?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably about 100 different roasters.
Okay, 100 different roasters, and you guys are selling 4, right?
5. So we've got a house roaster, and then what we're doing, so the house roaster's novel coffee roasters out of Dallas. It's just 3 dudes that are just totally killing it.
They're awesome.
They're roasting some of the best coffee we've ever had in our lives, and they're just so cool. And so they're our house roasters, so they'll always be in the shop.
Okay.
They'll provide us with single origin espresso and espresso blend, and will help us with our cold brew, with the beans for our cold brew and stuff.
Then who else are you guys going to be selling and why?
And so on top of that, we'll have a seasonal roaster for each season. So every 3 months it'll rotate.
Okay.
And what we're kind of doing is we're going to showcase each one of those roasters while they're in here. And so first up, you got Sweet Bloom out of Denver. Then you've got Roseline out of Portland. You got Kuma out of Seattle. And you got George Howell out of Boston. And so these guys, out of everyone that we tasted, were the best of the best. And so what we will offer from them is the best that they have to offer. And so we'll have each one of their coffees that they send us available on the brew methods, you know, each paired with their own respective brew method. And then we'll also be able to pull every single one of the coffees they have as an espresso because of the crazy grinders that we invested in. And then we'll also be able to offer every single one of the coffees that they have in cold brew with our crazy Kyoto setups that we have over there.
Yeah, you guys can make four different types of cold brew at once?
Yeah.
It's insane, man.
And then on top of the 4 different single origin Kyotos, we'll be able to offer nitro, hopped nitro, and like regular cold brew toddy. So
Yeah.
Dang.
yeah, so we've just got options. And
all
then,
on this very beautiful cement bar. A little dirty right now, but very beautiful. I like the wood polish on it.
It's really smooth for contact.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, one last question that I have for you guys before we get out of your hair. OK Hustle more is like an art blog. So the whole like reason I actually had the idea of doing this with you guys is I wanted to ask you what does coffee have to do with art? Can they relate, and how? And I guess maybe to add a little spice in it, besides just the normal latte art, the little flowers that you can get.
For
stuff.
sure.
Totally.
Man, I'm no artist, but one thing I know about art is that you have to, there's so many variables that go into making a piece, you know. You've got what are you gonna make it on? What are you gonna use?
Mm-hmm.
How thick should my lines be? You know, like all these questions that you have to ask when you're approaching making an art piece. It really is the same way with coffee, you know. It is unbelievable how many things can change a cup of coffee, you know. So I would say that there's just so many things that go into both to make an awesome end product, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That it's more than just like throwing some beans into an automatic coffee maker and something popping out, you know. There's so much thought put into making coffee right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just like art, it's a creative process as well, where sure there is the whole sciencey side of it, but I mean, even in here when we're making up signature drinks, where we are inventing something completely new, like we got a smoking gun in the back for a reason, so that we can smoke drinks. We got giant 2-inch ice cube trays for a reason. We're gonna have an entire batch of herbs and spices for a reason, so that we can concoct our own original drinks.
That's so cool.
Right here in the shop, and so creativity with the variables, because there's no doubt that in art you have these variables that you have to play with, but you're also working with your feelings. Like, what am I feeling? But then at the same time, what is even practical for me to do? And what falls into my grid work as far as like, what's my thing? What's my style?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I drive? And so all those things are also at play when we get to make coffee, and that's why it's beautiful. Like, you look at the Slayer and you're like, that thing in itself is an art piece. You look at those cold brew towers and you're like, those are beautiful. Like, we wanted this place to be beautiful, you know? We wanted this place to be a creative space.
Yeah.
And so I think in that way it totally can pair with art. So
Man, I know the place isn't done yet, but so far it does look so beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Your equipment is top notch.
Thanks.
And I'm pretty sure the coffee itself is going to be
She's gonna
dang.
be tasty.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And you guys are going to open in end of summer?
Man, it really should only be like 3 or 4 weeks.
Tight.
Yeah. So we're getting pretty close.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys.